we want to happen. But that's not what's going on. And you want to talk about courts. Wait, hold on. You want to talk about courts. But the highest court in the land told Donald Trump what to do: facilitate him coming back to the country. And guess what they did? They flipped the bird to the Supreme Court. That's not the rule of law.
This has already been one of the worst weeks of Donald Trump's presidency, and it is only Monday the markets are crashing. Pete Hegseth's drunken stupidity has created another scandal, and Donald Trump was just hit with a brutal lawsuit that, as you can expect, led to a posting tantrum. We're going to cover it all. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way. And it really does mean a lot to me. Now, it wasn't just this lawsuit that caused Donald Trump's posting tantrum. It was also the fact that several Democrats traveled to El Salvador to speak with and raise awareness about the illegal deportation of Calargo Garcia. So before we get into the lawsuit, I want to hear from Maxwell Frost, my congressman, who is down in El Salvador.
The matter is, it was their administration, when all this started, that admitted that they made a mistake in court documents, speaking to the Supreme Court, that they made a mistake. That's the whole reason this decision was handed down. They're trying to appeal things left and right. But the fact of the matter is, right now, they are not obeying a Supreme Court decision. And everyone should be very concerned about this. Of course, this is a constitutional crisis, but also this is going to have real impact for people across the country. The reason I'm here is because this impacts my constituents. The Donald Trump in the Oval Office talked about the fact that next he wants to go for quote unquote homegrowns. He's talking about U.S. citizens, sending U.S. citizens here to El Salvador. So this is something we all have to be not just alarmed about, but we have to do things about it. And this is part of the reason I'm here with Representatives Garcia, Dexter, and Ansari, because we have a certain privilege being members of Congress. We can come here, ask these tough questions, go to these places, and make sure that the conversation is top of mind for Americans. Everybody should be concerned about this. So Caroline can say whatever the hell she wants. She's just saying whatever Trump wants her to say. But at the end of the day, we have to continue to fight, because an end to this story, and the end that we want is for him to be back in the United States and he can go through his due process there.
We only have a minute left, but where do you see that going? Is it through the courts? I think reasonably you probably don't have an expectation that you're going to be able to meet with him. You don't have an expectation that Donald Trump is going to change the position of his administration. So where does this go? How do you accomplish what you want to accomplish?
It's going to be the courts, and it's going to be the people. Of course, they've appealed, and we think there's going to be another decision that goes up to the Supreme Court. They're going to continue to make up lies, and this is also when the people come in. And we know, and we've seen the numbers, that this is a very unpopular move the administration is doing. Look, they know that when he is returned back to the United States, it's going to be a huge political blow to this administration. That is why people like Caroline Leavitt are on Fox News, are on all these conservative news networks, saying no matter what, we're not going to let down. He's not coming back to the United States. The fact of the matter is, they don't know that, and this is part of the reason why we have to continue to fight. This is not the book has not been shut on this case of Abrego Garcia, and the book has not been shut on our Constitution, and that's part of the reason we're here today.
Congressman Maxwell Frost, thank you.
I am so grateful for the leadership and the bravery of the Democrats who have traveled down to El Salvador. This is what the moment requires. And we talked about this with Congressman Jason Crow, who made it clear that the right thing for Democrats to do politically right now, as he said, is just to do the right thing. This is not an issue that we need to focus group or message test. We need to protect this man's human rights. We need to give him the due process that he is due. And that goes for more than just Abigail Garcia. There are so many who Donald Trump is coming after with his unlawful intimidation and attacks. And one organization, one institution that Donald Trump just came after is firing back. And that is Harvard, with a new lawsuit against Trump that has him scrambling. Harvard sues Trump administration over $2.2 billion funding freeze. The Crimson reports Harvard sued the Trump administration in federal court on Monday over its multi-billion-dollar cuts to the university's research funding, accusing the White House of undertaking an arbitrary and unconstitutional campaign to punish Harvard for protecting its constitutional rights. The move comes just one day after the Trump administration reportedly planned to cut another $1 billion in federal grants and contracts from Harvard on top of an existing $2.2 billion cut that was announced last week, and it set in motion a historic legal clash as Harvard attempts to combat the Trump administration's devastating multi-agency campaign to slash the university's funding in exchange for deep concessions, including federal audits of Harvard's programs, agreements to screen international students for their beliefs, and in the installation of administrators who will ensure the White House's demands are carried out. The trade-off put to Harvard and other universities is allow the government to micromanage your academic institution or jeopardize the institution's ability to pursue medical breakthroughs, scientific discoveries, and innovative solutions. Harvard lawyers wrote in the Monday filing. The 51-page complaint filed in the United States District Court asked for the court to halt and declare unlawful the $2.2 billion freeze, as well as any phrases made in connection with unconstitutional conditions, and the Trump administration's April 3rd and April 11th letters outlining demands to Harvard. We stand for the truth that colleges and universities across the country can embrace and honor their legal obligations and best fulfill their essential role in society without improper government intrusion, the university president wrote on Monday afternoon. So Harvard is firing back at Donald Trump. And of course, anytime anyone does that, he does not like it too much, and so he responded to both Harvard and the Democrats going to defend the due process that is deserved to Kaine Abrego Garcia, and two angry posts that we can see on Truth Social. Right here, Donald Trump wrote first of his lawsuit, "The radical left is only good at playing the ref. They are always threatening our judges. This is judicial intimidation and should be against the law." Trump also writing about Harvard, perhaps they should lose their tax-exempt status and be taxed as a political entity if it keeps pushing political, ideological, and terrorist-inspired supporting sickness. Remember, tax-exempt status is totally contingent on acting in the public interest, Trump wrote about Kaine Abrego Garcia. This is the man that the courts are trying to save from being deported. He was supposed to be, according to the judge and the Democrats, a wonderful father from Maryland, but then they noticed he had MS-13 tattooed onto his knuckles and lots of really bad stories about his past. This is the gang that is perhaps the worst of them all. What is wrong with our country? So first of all, I don't know how Democrats are threatening judges when that is what Donald Trump did all throughout his trials, in which he had to have gag orders placed on him because of his tax on judges and their families. And as far as a tax-exempt status for Harvard, you can debate that if you want. But it is clear Donald Trump is acting with the worst of political intentions on these attacks. Remember, conservatives constantly whining about you don't need to say remember, because they always do, how their free speech is suppressed on college campuses. What is going on right now? What type of speech is Donald Trump trying to suppress on college campuses? It is always the hypocrisy. And as far as Kaine Abrego Garcia goes, everything that Donald Trump is trying to say about this man is a lie. Not only did he unlawfully deport him, but he is also defaming him every day. And the lies that are being pushed about Donald Trump's illegal mass deportation plan were also called out on Fox by Maxwell Frost, who we heard from in the beginning of this video. So let's take a look at his amazing takedown of Will Kaine right here.
We want to happen, but that's not what's going on. And you want to talk about courts. Wait, hold on. You want to talk about courts, but the highest court in the land told Donald Trump what to do: facilitate him coming back to the country. And guess what they did? They flipped the bird to the Supreme Court. That's not the rule of law. And so we should.
July 1st of 2024, you posted on your website the following. It's up right now if anyone wants to go to your website. Our country and the world will now recognize this day as the day the Supreme Court of the United States effectively became an illegitimate, politically corrupt arm of the conservative right wing. That's when the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that Donald Trump had immunity from prosecution. And on that day 10 months ago, you called the Supreme Court of the United States illegitimate. Here today, all of a sudden, you seem to be very dedicated, principled, in fact, to the simple rules of law, due process, and legitimacy of the court.
I still hold that the Supreme Court is very much skewed to the right and that there is corruption on the court. I do hold that today. But the fact that the court is so skewed to the right, and even then, they're still saying a complete decision, unanimous decision, that he needs to be brought home, shows that this shouldn't be a partisan issue. It should be a thing that Democrats, Republicans, everybody are coming behind. Bring the guy home so he can go through due process. That is what the Supreme Court, the conservative-leaning Supreme Court, said.
There is a huge difference in calling a decision by the court that breaks with previous precedent illegitimate one that clearly is in violation of the Constitution. Illegitimate calling out the court for a ruling that you believe is wrong. There is a difference between doing that and saying you are not going to listen to the court altogether. When Roe Wade was overturned, Joe Biden didn't come out and say, well, I don't like this ruling, so we're not going to listen to it. Do whatever you want. Court, try to enforce it. He didn't say that, right, when the court ruled against his student loan forgiveness plan. Joe Biden did say, all right, we are going to find alternative ways to accomplish this same goal, but the Supreme Court has made its ruling. Donald Trump isn't even saying that, as many conservatives have tried to argue. He's just saying we refuse to follow the ruling altogether. We are disregarding it. And in fact, we're going to claim that you ruled in our favor. Those are completely different things. And it is just nonsense to hear anything different from MAGA. But this is not the only instance recently when we've seen them get a little shaky when it comes to the law, and Rachel Maddow broke that all down right here.
Confirmed. And that's bad timing because, whoo boy, the work is really piling up over at the IRS. But look at this. Just this week, 2 Democratic senators on the Finance Committee wrote to the IRS asking the agency to open a criminal investigation into a handful of companies that they say have been selling tax credits that don't actually exist. And that obviously is problematic on its face, but it's even more concerning that Billy Long, Trump's choice to run the IRS, has, quote, direct financial ties to some of the companies implicated in this alleged scheme. The senators write that one of the companies, a company called Lifetime Advisors, hired Billy Long to do substantial work for it. The senators say the other company, called White River Energy, paid Billy Long thousands of dollars for some kind of referral fee. Now, the senators say that it's unclear what role, if any, Billy Long played in promoting these bogus tax credits that allegedly don't exist. But either way, these senators want the IRS to launch a criminal investigation into these firms that ran what they called a fraudulent scheme, including these firms that reportedly have direct financial ties to Trump's pick to run the IRS. And you kind of wish that was the end of the story, but of course it isn't. I mentioned that Billy Long tried to run for Senate and lost a couple years ago. During that race, Billy Long loaned his campaign a bunch of his own personal money. And when he lost, the campaign was in debt, which means the campaign owed money to Billy, to him personally. He's out of it, out of pocket himself. As of last year, 2 years out from that failed Senate campaign, Billy Long was still in the hole by a lot. $130,000 he had given to his campaign. His campaign had never been able to pay it back. And that's where this really gets interesting because, let's see, November, Trump gets elected president. December, he announces Billy Long as his choice to run the IRS. And then look what happens next. Quote, after Trump named Billy Long to head the IRS, Long's campaign committee suddenly raked in nearly $137,000 in less than 3 weeks in January. money that Long then used to pay himself back, according to disclosure documents filed this week.
Corruption and criminality are key to this administration. That is what it is all about for them. And we are going to continue to call that out every single day on the show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. Leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.